Most Unreal projects become impossible to navigate within a month. Assets are going to be scattered everywhere, no naming conventions, and you end up spending most of your time searching rather than building anything. I've created this series with an intention to fix that from the start. I'll be helping you build a complete shoot 'em up from scratch where every topic will be focusing on getting things done properly. This is good structure, good naming, good architecture, skills that will transfer into any project that you work on. We'll be working towards building the game that you can see in the background here based on official content created by Epic in their content examples package. If this is something that grabs your interest, then let's get going and set up that foundation. First, I'd recommend that you navigate to the download link in the description. You'll see two options here. We have shoot'emup_assets. This contains the raw meshes and textures in case you wanted to modify anything in Blender or Photoshop. Then you have the shoot'emup_tutorial_start, and this is the complete project. And this will be the one that you want to follow along with the topics that we run through. By default, this will be provided as a zipped folder for you, so you need to make sure to extract this somewhere sensible. And starting from the same project simply means that we're working with identical settings, the same assets working at the same scale and so on, which will make troubleshooting a little bit easier if you do run into issues. The first thing to look at, inside of the extracted folder, go into the shoot'emup_tutorial folder. By default, the project is in Unreal Engine 4.27 for maximum compatibility if you wanted to work with a slightly older engine version. If, like me, you're going to be upgrading this to work with the Unreal Engine 5, the upgrade takes about 10 seconds. On Windows, you can simply right-click on this .u project just here, and you'll have the option to select Switch Unreal Engine version. From the drop-down, pick the installed version that you want to work with, and then click OK. You're ready to go. I'm currently working on Linux, so I'll show you an alternative approach. This is useful anyway. This will work on Windows, and it's actually a really useful thing to know about because this can help you fix projects that wouldn't otherwise open due to things like missing plugins, plugin issues. So to do this, I'm just going to right-click on the .u project. I'm going to go to Open With, and you can pick any text editor. This could be Notepad, VS Code. I'll be working with Z. And we can see here on the left-hand side, if we look at the engine association, it's telling us that this was made with 4.27. We can just change this. I'm going to be working with 5.6, which is probably outdated by the time that you're watching this, but it will be close enough. With that done, like with any text editor, we can just save this, we can close the window, and that's now ready to go. To get the project started, we simply double-click the .u project, and this will begin loading in the background automatically. On Linux, double-clicking a U project by default doesn't actually launch the Unreal Engine. If you wanted that kind of integration, along with my custom Unreal Engine installer, this will do things like finding all of the locally downloaded or installed versions of Unreal, adding them to an automatic launcher here, and we can just go in and press OK, and we can load the fairly standard launcher that you'd normally get with the Unreal Engine. It's not really the main topic of what we're going to be going through, so I'll provide an additional link to this. You can check that in the description below. I'll be providing the scripts completely free of charge, so you can download the scripts as well, and that will just go more in depth on what I needed to do to get Linux up and running, ready, and working pretty seamlessly with the Unreal Engine. Now that we're inside of Unreal, your interface may look a little bit different to mine depending on which version you've decided to work with. Epic tends to reorganize things roughly every time someone gets a little bit bored, but we can just focus on the concept, not the exact buttons and the locations. They definitely all exist, and you'll be up and running quickly enough. The first thing to check out is the content browser or the content drawer, which is in the bottom left-hand side. This is where everything in your project lives. We can click this and we can see our project structure. Inside of the content folder, there's a subfolder that matches the project name, which is shoot'emup_tutorial, and this is Epic's recommended naming convention for projects and the folder structures. Inside then, we have an assets folder, which holds things like our meshes, textures, and materials. We have a blueprints folder for our code and logic, and we have a maps folder for our levels. This is a simple structure, but it scales to any project size. The other thing you may notice if you're browsing through some of the folders are things like the naming conventions which have been chosen. We have things like MM_texture, which stands for master material. We then have MI underscore, whatever the material is for, and that is material instance. If we go to the textures, we have things like our T_plane hero, and that's T for texture. The place I'm getting all of these naming conventions from are not random. These are all based on the ALLAR style guide. If you wanted to Google that, you can find that here. So we can just search for ALLAR style guide, and we're looking for the GitHub page, the first one just here. A link for this will be in the description below as well. Naming things is supposedly one of the 2 hard problems in computer science, and this solves one of those problems for you. I'd recommend bookmarking this for reference, and then whenever you're creating a new type of asset, if you're not sure what to call it, check here, and through repetition, this will become automated. It's a really good resource though. It provides pretty much everything you could want. You don't need to remember everything at once. There's quite a lot of things in here. But if we look down at the general naming conventions, we've got things like skeletal meshes would be skbob. The material for Bob would be M_Bob. Texture for Bob would be T_Bob, and so on. If we look at blueprints, we've got things like BP_, and then we can also check things like the file and folder structure. So exactly as I've mentioned here, the name of the project, and then all of the folders in a somewhat logical, meaningful setup. So this really is the holy grail of how to structure your projects, how to keep things tidy, and how to organize as you go. To get started, we need a main level to work within. Before I dive into that, there's something I want to do and introduce you to, just to make things a little bit easier for you to see my screen, but this may be useful for you to know about as well. So I'm going to go up to the Edit settings just here at the top of the screen and go to Editor Preferences. This is where we can change different features about how the editor is presented. The shortcuts, key bindings, and things like that can all be found in here. The thing that I want to change is the application scale just here. I'm just going to change this to 1.25. This is purely because I've got quite a large screen setup, so it may look a little bit stretched and the buttons may look a little bit small for you to follow along with. So as I've said, this is optional, but it's useful to know this exists. And there are many more things that you can do inside of the editor preferences to tweak the general look and feel of your editor if something isn't quite right for you to work with. This saves automatically though, so I'm just going to close the window and we can now get into creating our first level. This is nice and simple. We can go to the top left-hand side. We have our File button and we've got the option here to create a new level. One thing to look out for are the shortcuts. We can see all of the shortcut keys. New levels are something we tend to play with quite a lot, so this might be one that's worth remembering early on to save you a little bit of time. Inside of the new window, we're just going to select the basic level, not the open world. That's going to be far too complex for what we need right now, and it also takes longer to load in the editor every time you start back up. So we'll double click on basic, and we're now inside of our new basic level. Then let's make sure that we've saved this correctly as well. By default, this is called untitled, meaning that we haven't yet saved it. This isn't stored. If we close the project and come back, we'll lose our progress. So we're going to press Ctrl+S inside of the viewport here. Ctrl+S for save. We're going to drop down into the SHMUP tutorial folder, go to the maps folder, and we'll call this one main. We can give the name just down here. Hit save or enter, and that's automatically saved. Inside of the content drawer, we can go to our maps folder, and we can see our map is just here. Quick thing to note, Unreal uses the word map and level interchangeably. Same thing, two different names, because of course it does. We can see that here, in fact. This is called a level, but when we make use of this later, Unreal will ask for us to set a specific map. Another thing to note, and something else we'll be working with quite often, is the content drawer. So rather than pressing the button down here in the bottom left-hand side constantly, we can press Ctrl in space, and this will toggle the content drawer open and close. And this bit is really important. This is where beginners always lose their work, or at least they think they do until they come back and get some help. Without this step, you'll close your project, you'll reopen it, and you'll find yourself staring at an empty open world map or something you weren't expecting to see. Your main level does still exist, but Unreal doesn't know that it should be opening by default. So to change this behavior, we're going to go to the project settings. We'll go to Edit, and then Project Settings. On the left-hand side, in the top category, we want to find the Maps and Modes option. And then in the right-hand side, you see the Editor Startup map. Change this drop-down from Template Default to our main map that we've just created. And this tells the Unreal Engine which level to open when you first launch the project. We could also set the Game Default map here to be main as well. This determines what the player sees if you actually package the game and hand this to somebody else to play. These settings all autosave, so we can close this, we can reopen the project, and this means that you'll return exactly where you left off as long as you've had a chance to save the map you're working in. So this may seem like a lot of extra work and a lot of talking just for the first topic, but these fundamentals really compound. An organized project will stay manageable at the 10 hours of work, 100 hours, even 1,000 hours, whereas a messy project just doesn't. And that's really the goal and focus of this entire project-based approach. Things may take a little bit longer, but by the end you'll understand what you're doing and hopefully take away some good practices and make your future projects much more intuitive and easy to work with. But with that said, the foundations are now set. The project structure, naming convention, and settings are all configured correctly. The next topic will be creating our player pawn, which is something you can actually control. And as I've alluded to, I want you to actually learn what you're doing as you go through. One of the best ways to learn isn't just by following along step by step. Once you feel that you understand something, try extending it. Even for something as simple as we've done now. Add your own folders, rename some things, and just prove to yourself that you understand the pattern, not just the steps. I'll be guiding you on that throughout the course of what we're doing anyway, but there's only so much I can do, and a lot of the work will come from self-learning. If you make changes that work well, drop those in the comments and discussions below. And if you think you understand something and see somebody posting a question that you think you could answer, try answering it. Explaining something that you've just learned is one of the quickest and best ways to actually lock the new information in and ensure that you don't forget that in the future. If you think this is the kind of content that you're going to enjoy, I just wanted to mention that members will get early access to all of the topics, at least 1 to 2 weeks ahead, and more where I'm able to. I'm aware that more in-depth content like this doesn't always fare very well with the YouTube algorithm, so it's your help that will allow me to keep this in-depth content coming. So feel free to take a look. You can hit the join button below to join as a YouTube member, or take a look at the Patreon channel to see the goodies and rewards that I provide as a thank you.